Hey folks, my name's Alex Sahara. Been acting for about 30 years. I was in 2012, the big disaster movie, Open Range with Kevin Costner, Robert Duvall, Annette Bening. Got to shoot Costner. It was great. And I'm in the new recent movie, Final Destination Bloodlines, playing Uncle Howard. And you're listening to Kneel Before Blog.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hello and welcome to Kneel Before Pod, the podcast that is in no danger of going to prison for man's laughter, or anyone's laughter for that matter. I'm your host Craig, and we are here to discuss the June 2025 news, trailers and other bits and pieces. Joining me for this is someone who may have gone to prison for man's laughter. It's Angus. Hello.
I don't know if I've ever been accused of being funny enough to cause man's laughter.
It's always man's laughter though. That's all we care about, isn't it? No one cares about anything else. Just make men laugh. That's all we want to do.
It's a sad state of the world.
It really is. On that pessimistic starting note, we shall move into our customary what we've been watching and plugs and so on stage of the show. So what have you been watching of late?
I recently binge watched all of The Studio on Apple TV+.
I love that show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure how recent it is. Has it come out fairly recently? Because usually I'm quite behind the times.
This year, yeah. It finished around about the same time that Andor and Doctor Who and so on were wrapping up. The 10th episode was only a few weeks ago.
Okay, so I'm actually fairly current, which is good. But I basically watched it all over the course of a few days, maybe just a week or two. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I feel like it jibes quite well with my character on the pod, the money-hungry studio exec. I could see myself represented there.
Were you Sal Saperstein?
Yes, whenever he just wanted the easy money option, the quick buck. Yeah, I could see myself.
Instead of Seth Rogen, who pretended he was into art, but then would bend over at the slightest challenge.
Yeah. No, I thought it was really good. I just thought it was funny. I thought it was great that it addressed those issues of art versus commerce and selling out for the studio system. And lots of great cameos, lots of great performances. So yeah, it was just a really fun watch.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was achingly honest, or at least it seems to match up with all the nonsense you hear about behind-the-scenes troubles that happen with movies. And the thing is, it's coming from Seth Rogen, who knows his way around the industry. He's been in it long enough, so he's been on essentially both sides of this because he's done a lot of producing work recently, or over the last few years, so you can see where he's getting it from. And funnily enough, an interview that I did with Carl Basai, a director, and an actor, Vincent Gale, we actually spent a lot of time talking about the studio because they were talking about just how real it is. Mm-hmm. One of the things I remember from it most prominently is when they're looking to cast the Kool-Aid movie and they start off with Ice Cube and then it's like, well, we can't have a white wife, and then they have an all-black cast and they find that that's a problem because we're saying that all black people are Kool-Aid or something. It's just they get tied in these weird representation knots as they try and cast this movie, and you can see these conversations happening.
Yeah, it's funny because they spend that whole episode chasing their tails, and then at the very end they get called out for their use of AI, so it raises another big issue in the industry as well. So yeah, it's just really clever, and it is interesting as well. As you say, Seth Rogen's been on the end of it from an actor's perspective, so I presume had Suits come in to sets that he's been working on and try and buddy up with him, and then he's obviously the writer, the director, so he's got all these different perspectives. Yeah, it's just really knowing and really funny.
Yeah, there's going to be another series of it, so great. More to come. I think there's plenty to satirize there. Having Zoe Kravitz for the cameras pretending that she doesn't care about awards and it's not fair that we have to compete with her art and whatever, and then she's like, no, I really care. I'm already rich and famous. This is all I have left. Make sure you thank the producer, because without that thank you in the speech, you do not exist. And the Netflix guy saying, I just put it in their contracts. They have to thank me.
Yeah, that was good. There's so many good little nods and things.
You look at it and you're like, that must be exactly how it works.
Yeah, and a lot of them just sending themselves up as well and putting ego aside and things just to play a wacky version of themselves as well.
In a way, it reminds me of the American version of Extras.
Yeah, you're right.
That kind of vibe that works in all of the industry that they all work in.
Yeah, I hadn't actually made that connection, but you're right. It's very similar to that. And people willing to just send themselves up again and play really big or against type just for a laugh.
Yeah, so great choice. Love that show. I'll go back to it here and there. I think it's one that I'll continue to enjoy. Anything else?
That's about it for watching. I've been playing quite a lot of my PlayStation at the moment as well. I recently completed Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Really enjoyed that. Great performance. It looked amazing. It played exactly like I wanted it to. There was a lot of sneaking around. It was quite slow. It allows you to unravel the mystery at your own pace, which is great for me because I'm very methodical and like to take my time and just enjoy things as well. Don't want to be rushed along too much. So yeah, I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it if you haven't played.
Troy Baker, who has appeared briefly on Kneel Before Pod, voicing Indiana Jones.
Yeah, a really great take and very like Harrison Ford and reminiscent enough of the original trilogy that even got me right in the feels at some points because he is able to kind of capture that wonder that Indy has when he's encountering something for the first time or making a discovery that it feels like he's been waiting his whole life to make. So I thought it was really true to the films.
Maybe I could just borrow it from you when I have time to play video games.
If only that were possible in a world of electronic versions.
Oh, is yours electronic?
Yeah.
Ah, that's rubbish. Physical media, man. It's going to outlive this digital age.
I know. Hope I can just own the license for that for as long as I can.
I'm still frightened they're going to tear up down the PlayStation 3 store because I've got stuff on there. Stuff that I haven't looked at in like a decade, but it's there and it's mine and I want to keep it. Maybe I should just buy a big hard drive and download everything.
Yeah, might be the only way to conserve it all.
Can't use it without validating against the PlayStation Store, but it's downloaded. It's mine. One day I'll find a way to crack it.
So I have completed that recently. Been playing Split Fiction with Natalie. We played It Takes Two, which is a 2-player local multiplayer. I suppose you can play it online, but it harkens back to the days of couch co-op, and we really enjoyed It Takes Two, and we were highly anticipating the next game that the makers of that were going to come out with. So Split Fiction, I wouldn't even say halfway through it at the moment, but yeah, that's a really fun one to play with a friend.
That's been developed into a film with Sydney Sweeney. We talked about that a couple of months ago.
Ah, cool.
It will be either Split or Fiction. I'm assuming that's just the character names.
Yeah, it's pretty cinematic. I always tend to think, and maybe we'll get onto that later in this episode as well, that it's difficult to represent the experience that a player is engaging with a video game when it comes to remaking it as a movie. Part of the charm of It Takes Two and Split Fiction is that it's about that discovery of the different mechanics and level design and things like that. So I just feel like that would be quite difficult to recreate on screen. But the stories are good in these games as well, so maybe there's something to be mined there for movies.
Split Fiction is a blend of sci-fi and fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I'd heard about it. And we'll see what Sydney Sweeney is able to appear in. She's going to be producing it and starring as one of them. So that'll be something that was covered a couple of months ago. So it's probably not much further along in terms of development, but that's very quick to jump on a video game adaptation, isn't it? Because it's this year that it came out.
Yeah, it's pretty recent. And I expect that we'll have completed it by the time the movie comes out. I hope so, anyway.
It's unusual for you to be on the pulse of a video game.
I know, that's right.
2 video games, actually. You're on the pulse of 2 of them. You've got 2 full-price video games. What's going on?
I know, but I had to wait for Indiana Jones because it was Game Pass, Microsoft exclusive, came out before Christmas, and then I had to wait on tenterhooks for it to come out on PlayStation.
Unless you have a gaming PC and then you can get Game Pass and then you can play everything day one.
Yes, unfortunately I do not.
I don't have Game Pass. I think I've got a 3-month trial to claim, but I need time. If I'm going to claim that 3-month trial, I want to play the hell out of it.
I don't know if you'll ever find a good stretch, 3-month stretch.
Yeah, I want to complete like 4 games if I'm going to get it. It needs to be that much. If I'm paying nothing, I want to complete at least 4 games. In terms of what I've been watching, I've actually been watching nothing on TV at the moment. There's just nothing going on. Anything new anyway. Ever since Doctor Who, The Last of Us, The Studio, which we already mentioned, and Andor have finished, I've kind of been adrift with new TV. Although I have seen half the new season of Strange New Worlds, the Star Trek show, but I can't talk about it, even as we release it, because the embargo isn't up yet.
Fully embargoed.
Oh, actually, I think I'm allowed to give general information about it, because there have been some. We've seen half the season, and we loved it. Pieces. So I am going to generally talk about it then. Yes, I've seen half the season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, and I didn't like any of them. I thought they were all bad, and that's really disheartening for me. When new Star Trek comes out and I just don't like it. It's like watching Picard all over again, although it's not as bad as Picard. Or I don't think it's quite as offensive as Picard, but it's got significant different problems.
That is a shame.
I won't really say much more about it. There will be writing about it. There will be a podcast about it, probably, so there's plenty more of me dumping on new Star Trek to come. Look forward to it.
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah. In terms of movies, I've seen quite a few things. I saw the John Wick spin-off Ballerina, starring Ana de Armas as a assassin who dances. Well, she doesn't dance while doing her assassinations, which is a shame, because if you think of the film Mr. Right, starring Sam Rockwell, he is an assassin who dances while he's doing his assassinations, and it's delightful. Whereas this plays it a bit more straight. I thought the action in it was very well directed, but it's a film that's been hacked to pieces from an earlier version of itself. I think it's slightly under 2 hours now, but it feels like it was cut from a longer thing. And it's a very basic revenge plot. I just found myself not really caring about the revenge plot. So I found it difficult to get invested in what was going on. I thought Ana de Armas was really good, and she has really good action chops. I know she was being tipped for a James Bond spin-off that will probably never happen, but I think she would do a great job with that. And you had Keanu Reeves turning up as John Wick for a couple of scenes. Most of his screen time is actually in the trailer, but it's an expansion of that world, I guess. And turns out I'm not that interested in expansion of the John Wick world. Although I feel like I would watch an Ana de Armas action movie that's not connected to the John Wick franchise. Well, it is connected in the sense you have the Continental Assassin Hotel and other fixins, but you could remove them and it would just be another revenge plot and it wouldn't really make that much of a difference.
How heavily does that impact the film?
Well, it's just she goes to the Continental and there's characters from the John Wick movies that show up there. Angelica Houston's in there. You've got Lance Reddick in his final role as well, because he recently passed away a couple of years ago. So that's his final performance.
Right.
It was good. He's good, but the film itself I thought was pretty average. I've no burning desire to watch it again, and I probably won't. But Ana de Armas in action movies, I buy it, and I think there'll be plenty of opportunities for her to do that in future.
Hope so.
I saw the How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake, which we talked a bit about during our upcoming, but also in the past, 300th podcast. I'll just quickly reiterate what I was saying there. I thought it was very good. Chris made the point of, you do a shot-for-shot remake of How to Train Your Dragon, which is a good film, then you should, in theory, end up with a good film. But it's this argument of, I don't like it because it's exactly like this thing. In Star Trek, the original series, there's an episode where Spock kills off an android by confusing it. It's two female androids, and he says, I love you, but I hate you, even though they're identical. And it's like, but we're identical. Yes. That's why I hate you, because you're identical to her. And it just confuses it. It's a bit like that with this. It's not entirely identical. They give Astrid, one of the characters, far more to do in this version. They make a mess of the test flight sequence, which is the thing you need to get right in your How to Train Your Dragon remake. They didn't get it right. Jerry Butler got to walk around and say his lines instead of stand in a booth and say his lines this time. So that's different-ish, I suppose. I liked it. I thought the young actors were very good. You had Nick Frost in it instead of Craig Ferguson, which is a choice. He's the only English guy among all these Scottish Vikings. But it's good. It looks very good, and I feel like unlike the Disney remakes, it's made with some care and attention, whereas a lot of the Disney remakes, I don't think they are.
I assume that they're going to do the sequels as well.
The second one has already been announced, yeah. So you can watch that again in a couple of years, but with real people in it. How exciting.
Exciting.
In terms of animation, I've seen Elio, which is Pixar's new film, which is the, unfortunately, least successful opening weekend for a Pixar movie ever. And Disney only have themselves to blame for that because they've run Pixar into the ground to the point where people either don't know about it or don't care about it anymore. And they've also sort of trained people to expect these things on streaming, so maybe it's not worth it for the cinema. I also didn't feel like it was Pixar firing on all cylinders. I thought it was really good. It could be seen as a decent entry-level sci-fi movie. It ticked all the boxes, but with Pixar, I'm expecting them to do more than tick all the boxes, and it didn't feel like this one did it.
Yeah, I feel like whenever we talk Pixar on the podcast, I usually say I'm kind of out of the loop, but I just expect that they can do no wrong. So whatever they come out with, even if it's a premise that I don't think sounds all that intriguing, I usually think they'll turn it out and it'll be amazing, because they seem to have been able to do that in the past with whatever they turn their hand to. So it is strange to hear that they're experiencing some difficulties now.
Yeah. I also saw a film called Dangerous Animals, which is, I was going to say slasher, but it's not. It's more of a tense thriller horror. Basically, you've got this serial killer played by Jai Courtney, of all people, who kidnaps women and then films feeding them to sharks because he has some weird hang-up about that. He's just insane, and that's what he likes to do. The thing that surprised the hell out of me is that Jai Courtney isn't just competent in it, he is good. He is very good, and I had no idea he was capable of such a thing, because everything I've seen him in, he has been dreadful. I didn't know Jai Courtney was in it before I went to see it.
Would that have changed your decision to go and see it if you had realised that he was in it?
I might not have gone to see it if that was the case, yeah.
Well, you were pleasantly surprised.
I just find him so objectionable most of the time. I might have to take him off the list that he occupies with Miles Teller and so on. I don't know if you've seen the Die Hard film where he was John McClane's son.
No, but I've definitely heard you talk about it several times.
The Terminator movie where he's Kyle Reese.
No, I think that you've probably also warned me off that.
He's also in a bunch of crappy fantasy sci-fi things. He's in I, Frankenstein. He's in both Suicide Squad movies as well. He's not very good in any of this. And in this, where he just really kills it, it's really good. And I forget the actress's name, the lead actress, but she's very good as well. She's one of those hyper-capable final girls that you're getting in the modern horror era, but I believe it. There was a point towards the end where I was like, this is getting a little bit ridiculous, but it sort of built up enough good faith that I was able to buy into it just enough. It's very good. It's about 100 minutes long or something. Not a long watch at all, but definitely one worth checking out.
Cool.
I saw 28 Years Later, the Danny Boyle directed, Alex Garland written, 23 years later sequel to 28 Days Later. That's a lot of later in one sentence. It's set 28 years later, but it was made 23 years later. And the rage virus has rendered the UK a quarantine island that no one goes to anymore. And it's centred on this young boy who is learning the ropes about going into the mainland and foraging for supplies and stuff like that. His dad is Craven the Hunter, Aaron Taylor-Johnson. His mother is Jodie Comer. You've got Ralph Fiennes in there. It's very good. I think they do the horror elements really well. It's very touching in places. And people will tell you about this weird out of left field ending that is a bizarre tonal shift. I'd actually heard about this weird tonal shift in the last 5 minutes before I saw the movie. And I was wondering, as I was watching it, what can happen at the end that will elicit this reaction from people? And I don't think I had quite the same level of strong reaction to it, but I did see where it was coming from. It's very good.
But you had been warned.
Yeah, I'd been forewarned just by being online.
Yeah.
It's a legacy sequel that really works. It doesn't depend on having seen either of the original two movies, as long as you can accept that the virus happened, and it catches you up in the first 2 minutes. So you're fine if you haven't seen them in a while or haven't seen them at all.
I wonder how much they regret not making 28 months later.
Yeah, but wouldn't that just be 2 and a bit years later in reality?
Yeah. I just feel like for completion's sake, if you've got days, weeks and years, it just feels like there's something missing in there.
Yeah, but I guess 28 weeks later didn't do well enough.
No, that's the thing. They thought we'll just have to let this go dormant for a number of years before we then revive it.
Alex Garland wrote the first one and then Danny Boyle directed it, and then it was other people that came back to it, and it was very much not their project. So it's not that they disown it, it's just they don't care about it. There is a reference to 28 weeks later in the movie, so it's not been decanonized.
Okay.
Like, it mentions the rage virus making it to France, but then they just nuked Paris or something like that, and it was fine. They nipped it in the bud and then everything was fine.
Fair enough.
It deals with all the things you might expect. The idea of what if rage spreads through a country and it's the UK and then they're isolated from the rest of the world. What could that be alluding to, perhaps? It's also about grief and the importance of life as well, which I wasn't really expecting. Because, you know, in a lot of these zombie apocalypse things, life becomes somewhat disposable. Mm-hmm. People get bitten, they shoot them in the head or whatever, and then they move on.
Yeah.
You do get a bit of grieving, but say with The Walking Dead, when you're 6 seasons in, I didn't make it that far, but just say you were 6 seasons in, it gets to the point where they don't seem to care anymore when characters die, so why should we? But it does place a very poignant emphasis on how important it is to honour people that have lost their lives in the face of this thing. Maybe a bit of COVID in there as well.
Yeah, so maybe not quite as bleak as it could be.
No, it's a far more positive movie than I would have expected. Certainly in places. So I would definitely recommend it. How familiar are you with the original? Do you remember it that well?
I do. I remember being quite scared of it. Must have been something to do with the presentation of the fast, they're not really zombies, but everyone kind of refers to them as zombies, and the shaky cam and just how visceral it was. I remember it being really quite affecting.
Shot on video or something.
Yeah.
I saw it in the cinema because they did the two of them in the cinema before this one came out, and it looks dreadful on the big screen, actually. Because of how grungy it was in terms of filming it and how low budget it was, they weren't filming with proper film cameras. It's in 480p or something like that. The resolution's nothing. And it's supposed to be out on 4K discs soon. How's that going to work? Going to show all the blemishes.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a rustic charm to it. It's got a kind of an indie charm to it. And
yeah, definitely. I don't remember the sequel at all, really. I have seen it, but just once.
Yeah, this one was filmed on an iPhone, apparently. When people say they filmed it on an iPhone, what they mean is they hooked up a really expensive, fancy lens to an iPhone. The iPhone was a storage device whereas the lens was doing all the work. But it was more portable, so they could get those close angles and things like that. Really good. It doesn't look cheap or anything, but it was only made for 60 million or something. A budget it made back on its opening day. It's going to be fine. We'll get the 3 of them that they're planning to make, if you want them.
Yeah, I feel like I need to go check it out.
I would say so. Try and see it in the cinema. Mm-hmm. The last thing I saw is F1. Brad Pitt as F1 driver. It's Top Gun, but in a car, because it's the same director. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. The story, I could maybe poke holes in it if I thought about it, but I haven't thought about it. I only saw it yesterday as we record, and I thought the film was pretty thrilling. The racing sequences were amazing. It was beautifully shot and rendered. Brad Pitt still engaging as a lead, even if he is really showing his age now. The last thing I saw him in, I think, was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it feels like he's aged 10 years since then. But he's getting older gracefully, which I really respect of a movie star of his ilk.
It's interesting to think about where he came from and being the pretty boy, the punk in his earlier days, and then he really embraced the more, even though he's always been handsome, it's difficult to not be when you're him, but to play a few more grungy characters and down at heel types and things, and yeah, it's a bit more range than you might have expected in the early 90s when he played a particular kind of role over and over again.
I feel like he never really fell into that pretty leading man trap, though. He was always kind of challenging himself. If you look at someone like, to pick on Jerry Butler, he languished in basically making the same movie over and over again, the rom-com stuff. I've never seen any of Jerry Butler's rom-com things, but he did that for a while, whereas Brad Pitt was always doing weird and interesting things like Fight Club or Seven or whatever else.
I think Fight Club could be the turning point. I'm not enough of a Brad Pitt historian, but I think Seven was probably still counted in as pretty leading man. He was supposed to have the marriage as a detective and all this kind of stuff. So I feel as if he was a bit more pigeonholed in that. And then Fight Club, I think if I remember correctly, that's more subversive, changing from being the face to something completely different. And then, yeah, from there, I agree, he's really embraced all sorts of different projects and probably proves that he's one of the greats.
Yeah, so F1 in IMAX, very thrilling. I'm not into Formula One at all, but I was able to follow the narrative of the race, which means that they did their job.
I assumed that was how they would pitch it. I've got a couple of friends that are into F1 and want to go and see it, and my assumption was this will be for as wide an audience as possible.
Yeah. They missed a trick by not releasing it around Father's Day, I think. Ultimate dad movie, that's probably is. It's really good. Lewis Hamilton's one of the producers, and he also appears in the film. Something, I suppose.
Makes it legit.
I guess so, yeah. And that's been it. Seen much else? Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, Kneel Before Pod is celebrating its 300th episode pretty soon.
/ has celebrated its 300th episode.
Trying to kind of preempt that, something that we've already done. But yes, we're about to have that milestone. That's about all I can plug. Stick around. This will be episode 299. Come with us on the journey through 300.
Or just watch the feed on YouTube. It's still there. You could watch it, or you can wait for the edited down and tidied up version. And you can tell us which one's better. If you tell me that I shouldn't have bothered editing it, I will scream, probably.
Don't tempt people.
But I will also accept that opinion. I will scream, but I'll accept it. I think in terms of other appearances for me, the only recent one will be my appearance on Bo Nicholson, also of This Parish's show Movieversaries, although he's not on that episode. It was Andy Williams hosting it, and superfan / benefactor Violet was also there for the episode talking about Back to the Future for its 30th anniversary.
Very good.
I don't feel old because it was still out before I was born, so it's fine. It was a lot of fun. That should be out by now, by the time you're listening to this. I'm not sure what else I'm doing over in Film Stories podcast network at this point. We Are Starfleet will be starting its Star Trek Strange New Worlds coverage in the coming weeks, so you can check out the feed for that. That'll be there at some point around about the 17th of July, because that's when we're allowed to release them. All right, let's move on to trailers. We'll start with Good Fortune, where Keanu Reeves plays an incompetent angel. I think this film is a pretty standard comedically charged, it's about finding your place sort of movie. Keanu, or Gabriel, is in a dead-end job where he's given all the crappy angel tasks and he needs to find his groove. He needs to find his purpose in the universe. I think his stilted line delivery actually works here. Keanu Reeves, not the greatest actor, but there's certain roles where he does really well, and I feel like this I have no idea what I'm doing sort of affectation works for this character.
Yeah, it's a bit of a throwback to his comedy roots. I thought that was quite charming. I thought this felt like something from the early 90s maybe in the premise, and not just because Ted Theodore Logan is in it. As I say, it looks quite charming and it looks like a bit of a throwback. I was getting Travolta and Michael vibes, an angel on earth, kind of trying to do good deeds.
Seth Rogen, Aziz Ansari, good cast. I believe one of them is writing it as well. I haven't looked up which, but one of them's writing it. So yeah, it looks like it'll be good fun. Be worth a Saturday afternoon cinema trip sort of deal. Mm-hmm. There's not much to say. It's a 1-minute teaser, isn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, looks like it'll shift some popcorn.
Could do. Not for me, though. I never buy popcorn. I'm bringing my own snacks. I hope no one who works in Cineworld is listening. They'll rumble me. Next up, we have A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. You have Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie going back in time to revisit their iconic life events, these core memories that they have, and perhaps think about whether they regret them or could have done something differently, or whether they should just value what they have and think about their futures and embrace how things have turned out, all that stuff. I've put the note, it'll be dripping in sentimentality, which I think has its place. And I think this looks quite earnest as well. I feel like I'm going to get along fine with it. I think it looks really good.
I think it looks pretty schmaltzy, which has its place. I was getting millennial malaise vibes, addressing how a lot of us feel wanting to go back to when things were good and were easygoing. So I was feeling like it would appeal to that crowd.
Back to when I could spend a whole weekend playing video games and not feel guilty. That wouldn't make for a great movie if it was just about my life. It's just me revisiting me playing Final Fantasy for 3 days straight in the 90s.
No, but what a glorious time it was.
It was. Only leaving my room to eat or use the toilet. All I ever needed to do. What a life. But yes, this looks really good. Colin Farrell is really killing it lately as well in terms of the roles that he's choosing. I haven't seen Penguin, but apparently he's great in that. And just other stuff that he's done as well.
Yeah, he's another one who managed to break out of the either romantic or action-y leading man type role and has done quite a few interesting things more recently.
But he's also done the Total Recall remake.
Yeah, there is that.
Not his crowning achievement.
Stain on his copybook.
Yeah, I think every actor should learn, you do not do the remake of an Arnie movie. No one is Arnie. No one.
Good rule to live by.
Except Arnie. He is, of course, Arnie, that no one else can be. Yeah, I think I'll enjoy this. It's going to be in theatres, which is good. It feels like this is the sort of film that they would try and shove on streaming. So maybe the powerhouse that is Margot Robbie is the one getting it into theatres. Mm-hmm. You could do an episode of The Studio about that, where an actress has to do the film that the studio wants to do in order to get their film into theatres.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about all the behind-the-scenes wrangling that takes place to get these on the big screen.
Yeah, and I will watch this on the big screen whenever it's out. Next up, we have another music biopic, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Are you a fan of Bruce Springsteen? I am not. It's not that I'm not a fan, it's just I haven't engaged much with his music.
Yeah, I'm the same. I know a few people who hold him in high regard, and I can understand that. I can appreciate his legendary status, but yeah, he holds no great place in my heart, really. So it's interesting seeing this, and to me it felt a bit like after a string of music biopics, this is just an inevitable next step.
Yeah, well, we had the Bob Dylan one with Timothée Chalamet recently, didn't we?
Yes, probably wasn't all kicked off by Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody, but it felt like those two being out in quick succession and being well received of a sort seemed to just kind of proliferate so many more of these.
Yeah, I have no idea if Jeremy Allen White is a good choice for the role. I'm guessing that Springsteen will have approved of him in some way because he's still alive and can do that. Mm-hmm. Unless it's one of those biopics that's made without his consent, like the Donald Trump one, for example.
It was interesting with Rocket Man that Elton John was obviously a producer on it, and you could tell that his approval was given to so much of this. It wasn't entirely positive because obviously it dealt with things like drug abuse, but still it was clearly told from his point of view. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Springsteen fans think of this one. I like Jeremy Allen White. I like Jeremy Strong, the Jeremys from The Bear and Succession. I was getting the Bear / Iron Claw type vibes from Jeremy Allen White in this, but then maybe it's just because he's quite intense in all of those. So he's doing the same thing here.
Wonder if Timothée Chalamet will turn up in the post-credit scene and say, I'm putting together a team. They form some kind of Avengers of music.
Yes, get together the Travelling Wilburys team-up movie.
The Live Aid movie. I don't know if they both played Live Aid. I'm assuming so. Some kind of festival. We're going to do a festival. Woodstock. That was probably earlier. I have no idea. I don't know that much about music. And other than the Springsteen hits, I don't know much about the guy. So maybe I should watch the movie and it'll tell me something about it.
You might be converted.
Yeah, and you have things like Bohemian Rhapsody, where the surviving members of Queen are producers on the movie, and they're covering up certain facts that people already know, such as when Brian May released a solo album before Freddie Mercury did, or all the drugs that they were taking at the same time, but it was all Freddie's fault.
Yeah, I suspect that as gritty and as raw as some of these might be, they will never be the whole truth, or never the stuff that the subject matter wouldn't want you to know about.
Yeah. Next up, we have I Know What You Did Last Summer, the legacy sequel / soft reboot of the 90s film of the same name starring Jennifer Love Hewitt and Sarah Michelle Gellar. We have Jennifer Love Hewitt here again. Seems like the first film again, but with young and hot cast, which is a direction to go for a legacy sequel. I don't remember the original that well, so I can't remember if it was in any way subversive in the way that Scream was, and I don't know if this will have the same legs that Scream would have as a legacy sequel, because Scream itself made fun of the fact that it's a legacy sequel, whereas this might play it a bit more straight.
Yeah, Scream definitely had that angle to come at it. It was always very meta. That's what I really liked about the Scream Lego sequel. This one looks far more bog standard, at least from what I've seen in the trailer. I admit that I did smile at the cameos when they appeared, but that's purely nostalgia. I agree that the original is kind of just that 90s or late 90s slasher craze, and I think that the recent reboots of Scream and Final Destination have got more of a hook. Ironically, this one features a literal hook.
Yeah.
But there's at least something more to build around, because as we've said, Scream's got the whole meta narrative. They dig into that in the sequels. Final Destination, I actually haven't seen the newest one, but I gather it's done very well.
It's pretty good, yeah.
It's got that supernatural death following you through line, whereas this one is, from what I can tell from this, unless there's something clever they're going to do with it, I can't really work out what that would be. This doesn't really seem to have much more than we're just going over the same ground, and we'll get Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt back in for it as well.
Sarah Michelle Gellar, unlikely to turn up because I think she dies in the original. I will need to rewatch the original, I think, because I feel like I've only seen it as one of those ITV2 staple type movies back in the day when it was just on every other week.
Yeah, for me and my sister around that time, we loved Scream, Final Destination a bit, but then there were always the ones that were a couple of tiers below, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, that sort of thing. So it definitely fell down the pecking order, and so I don't have as much anticipation, but I would like to see it just in case there is something a bit more clever that they're doing with it.
Other than Jennifer Love Hewitt turning up saying, oh, we ran someone over and covered it up back in the 90s as well. Something oddly familiar about all this.
Yeah.
I do like Madeline Klein though, and I think she might be a good, I don't know what the term is now. It used to be Scream Queen, but I think that's quite insensitive to say now. Final Girl, can you still have that? I don't know.
Yeah, think so.
We've decided that's what she is. She might not even be the final one. She might die. Who knows? It looks well made, at least. We'll give it that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new Final Destination's pretty good. You can listen to my interview with Alex Zahara, who plays Uncle Howard in the movie. He's in quite a lot of it, actually. So he was great to talk to. He was very chatty and very generous with his time and anecdotes. So it's very worth listening to. And yes, the new Final Destination is pretty decent as these things go. Let's move on to Eddington, which is a mayoral race in a town called Eddington. It's set in 2020, although based on the trailer, it seems there's no real evidence of COVID. To me, this struck me as we're definitely shooting for the prestige crowd here. We want this to be seen as a serious film with serious stuff going on and really intense performances and all this. We want this to be a film bro favourite. That's what they seem to want from it. I think it looks fine, but I also feel like it's not for me.
Okay. I thought that there was maybe one COVID test in the film. I thought that I saw something along those lines, just picking up on that point, but that may or may not be important to the film, and that it's set in 2020. I was having a look through the comments and people were thinking about how we're already looking at dramatizations of that period and all of the turmoil and stuff. It just shows how strange times we're living through, but I thought it looked like a solid cast, quite an interesting topic. I don't think that the trailer gives away a ton of what it's about, or too much really.
No, it goes from campaigning to a machine gun.
Yeah.
There's quite a range in there.
Maybe I'm a bit too film bro-y then if I see Ari Aster and I think, oh, I'm interested.
Hereditary was Ari Aster, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Midsommar.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I haven't seen Midsommar.
I liked them both, and I wasn't getting vibes of either from this, so that's maybe intriguing to me as well. I like those films. If it was just more of the same, I'd think, okay, well, I've kind of seen that before, but I'm intrigued.
Cool. I think it'll probably be good, but it's not for me. I don't think. Based on what I've seen here, this doesn't really grab me.
Fair enough.
It's not because it doesn't contain anyone in a colourful costume or aliens or spaceships or whatever. I do like real person drama too. But it's just some things that are just not for me. I feel like there's going to be a lot of insufferable film bros telling you it's the best thing ever and making it their personality for a few months.
I'll try to calm that down. I can't speak for everyone else.
When you see it in about 5 years when it appears on a streaming service that you have access to.
Yeah.
When COVID is a far more distant memory than it is now. Let's move on to something I'm very excited about. Weapons. I think this looked really good. I'm very intrigued by the mystery. Also the themes of responsibility and accountability and that powder keg of blame that's permeating through this town. It's pretty clear that it seems clear that the resolution will be a supernatural one in some way. All these kids, they disappear at the exact same minute on the exact same night and they're all in the exact same class. There seems to be some kind of supernatural thing at play. So maybe the last half hour will be like, was that it? But everything building up to that looks pretty heavy duty, just in terms of, we're going to blame this teacher. And even if she's found innocent, still her fault as far as us parents are concerned. And I think it's a quite high profile thing at the moment. There's a lot more news, or it feels like there's a lot more news about kids going missing than there was before. So I feel like that sort of thing will be on people's minds, and maybe it'll feed into what they might think of this film in terms of, so who do you blame when this happens? Because being humans, we're all going to look for someone to blame, right? And then unfortunately, the common denominator here is this poor teacher who has to live in this small town with all these people. There's a lot in here based on this 1.5 2-minute trailer, and you've got the mystery on top of that.
Yeah, it definitely looks creepy, and there was speculation about if this is a sort of Pied Piper type scenario or something completely different. It mentions Barbarian. Is it from the director of Barbarian? There's something to do with Barbarian in the trailer, a film I enjoyed, but I only saw it after it was hyped. As you mentioned before, I tend to see things a bit later, so I caught it on streaming, and I suspect that's probably how I'll end up watching this.
I'll be seeing this in cinemas for sure, and then I'll text you the spoiler of what the mystery resolution is.
I'd appreciate it if you didn't, but if you can hype it, I'll no doubt jump on the hype train once the right people are talking about it. You being one of them, of course.
I would never do that, but some idiot will online. Probably as they're watching it, because that's what people do. They'll be on their phone in the cinema, spoiling it. But it looks really good. Great cast, very sweaty sort of tension about the blame flying around and so on. Looks like it might be quite uncomfortable, but in a good way. I'm here for it. Next up, something I'm not so here for. Wicked for Good. I've seen Wicked, and I did not enjoy it, so I will not be watching this one. The trailer is on the list because it's a popular thing and we just have to talk about it so that people can hear me say it. I have no interest in watching it because I didn't enjoy the first one. And the second act of Wicked is widely considered inferior to the first, so it feels like there's a barrier to entry in here anyway. Because of the fact that they did all the good stuff in the first part, or the stuff that people like. It looks like the first one, basically. So if you're into that, then watch this.
No, I'd agree. I thought the trailer looked good. It looked like the first one. I haven't seen the first one. I have seen the stage show.
I've seen the stage show as well, yeah.
And if you're into it, then that's great. And I gather that people are highly anticipating this, so that's good for them. I can't remember the second act, what my feelings on it were. If there are songs that people like, they're going to turn up and they're going to enjoy watching them, so that's good.
There's a rumour that Taylor Swift will be Dorothy.
Oh, really?
I don't know how true that is. Probably not at all. Our superfan / benefactor / noted Swiftie will be able to tell us.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can get the inside scoop.
Yeah, so Violet let us know in the Discord, is Taylor Swift rumoured to be Dorothy? She's been rumoured to be in a lot of films and she's never turned up in any of them. She was supposed to be in Argyle. That was the rumour, that Agent Argyle was going to turn it to be Taylor Swift. I'm not going to spoil who did turn it to be Agent Argyle, but it was not Taylor Swift.
So nothing since Cats then?
Yeah, that was her last cinematic appearance.
And some might say greatest.
Some might say, yeah. I remember I saw her in a young adult adaptation called The Giver that had Jeff Bridges in it. She's in like 2 scenes or something like that. And the reason I remember it is because when I did my review, it randomly got retweeted massively. And it turns out it's because I'd unknowingly put in the tags of the review Taylor Swift. Just people found it. The funniest thing about it is the review does not mention Taylor Swift at all. So anybody who read it would have been like, well, that's not what I was looking for.
The art of going viral.
By accident. I wouldn't even call it viral. It just got noticeably more retweets than most things I do. Will she be in Wicked for Good? I will find out after the fact because I'm not going to go watch it. The Naked Gun is our next one. This is one I'm actually going to watch. I laughed several times at this trailer. And I think it could be time for the return of the spoof. There is already a new scary movie in the works, and we'll talk about it later, but Spaceballs is also going to be happening, and maybe a couple others that I've forgotten. So we could be looping back round to maybe actually funny spoof movies, because in the early 2000s, we had all of these epic movie and date movie and all this nonsense. They made them because they cost like $2 million to make, and they made $10 million. So it was a no-brainer in that respect, but they were all really bad. But this looks really good. Liam Neeson seems up for it. There's some really funny jokes in it. The one that I stole for the intro, the 20 years in prison for manslaughter. I think it means manslaughter. Take a chair, and then literally taking the chair out. Just being literal with these things. That can be funny. Where he looks like he's driving and then he gets handed the coffee cup from outside the car. I'm just repeating the jokes now. This is why we don't do podcast episode on comedies, because that's all we'll do. I found that funny. Yes, I also found that funny. But what did you think of this? Did you also find these things funny?
Yeah, I could see that there was the makings of the jokes and the humour from the original Naked Gun movies in there, which I was pleased about. I was trying to find the tone that they were pitching for the trailer. I love the originals and Leslie Nielsen movies. But yeah, there was something about the tone. I'm wondering if they're playing with the fact that it is Liam Neeson and, you know, all the Taken tropes and all that kind of stuff, because he's this kind of tough guy that is no nonsense, that kind of thing. But in this, he's going to be doing the pratfalls and that sort of thing. I hope that the tone of the end product is a bit more like the originals, because I found that maybe they're trying to reel you in with the Taken version of Neeson. But as I say, I do think that some of the jokes that you've mentioned that are in the trailer are reminiscent of the originals. My favourite one is the O.J. Simpson reference.
Yes. The Hall of Dead Dads.
Yeah, I want this to be really good, and I want it to have the comedy from the originals. I just wasn't getting it from the trailer, but I'm wondering if that's an angle that they're playing at the moment, just to try and say, look, we've got Liam Neeson, and then they're going to go all out. That's what I hope.
Yeah, Liam Neeson is up for sending himself up. I've seen it on a few occasions. The most notable one for me is that scene in Ted 2 where he's buying Lucky Charms, and he's like, are these exclusively for children? And Ted's like, no, they're not. It's just an advertising thing. I won't be followed. No, we don't have the budget for that. But he just plays it totally straight. And I don't know what other comedies I might have seen him in. The Phantom Menace. He's quite funny in that.
There's the thing he's in, is it Extras, where he's in a scene with Ricky Gervais and they're doing line readings and stuff, and Gervais and Merchant are trying to get him to do things a bit differently, and he's just playing it super seriously. Just, I'm Liam Neeson, I know what I'm doing here. I think that's probably the funniest thing I've seen him in. I'm trying to remember what show it was. I don't know if it was Extras. It can't have been because Gervais was playing himself. But yeah, it's funny. It's the kind of thing that's clipped and shown online quite a lot. I see it in reels and YouTube clips and things quite often.
I'll try and find it for the show notes.
Yeah.
But I have seen the thing you're talking about. The thing is, it's a comedy trailer where I laughed a few times, and that's unusual for me. So it's got my attention there. It's Seth MacFarlane writing it as well. He's quite a funny guy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if anybody's going to latch on to the style of the Naked Gun Police Squad comedy, it's going to be him.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm very keen for this. I will hopefully have a good few laughs in August when I go and see it, and it's not all the funny stuff in the trailer, because that's always the fear, isn't it?
Yeah, but the Naked Gun was just so gag a minute that I feel as if it can't possibly be. Hopefully it's not all the best stuff that's in the trailer, but that's what I would look forward to, is something that's just so quick and just keeps hitting you with joke after joke. So yeah, it would be difficult to spoil all of them, but yeah, I hope that they've saved some of the good ones or some of the best ones for the film.
We shall see. Next up, we have Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery, which is the date announcement teaser. But you do get some imagery there. It seems there's going to be a more religious edge to it in this one. I really liked the first two. I haven't seen them more than once, though, but maybe that's the best way, or maybe I should watch them again just to see how the mystery is constructed and whether it all comes together well enough. But I enjoyed the two of them. Netflix are making a massive mistake by limiting it to their platform. If it's anything like the second one, it'll probably be limited run for a week, because I saw it in the cinema during that week that it was playing. And if you project the money it made in that week over a normal run, it would have done really well. So it seems like Netflix are screwing themselves out of a good chunk of money by not doing that, as opposed to it's just something on Netflix that people might not get around to watch, which is always the fear. Well, I don't have Netflix, so I would have to be creative in terms of going to watch it and then make an effort to seek it out to watch it. Whereas if it's on at the cinema, I have to make an effort, but it's easier as a thing because it's on at the cinema. I'll go see that. But yeah, a bit of a religious theme this time, which is different.
Yeah, I wonder if they're banking on this being, you know, you get system sellers, consoles selling games and things, and if they're thinking this is going to be a subscription seller. I saw this teaser organically recently, and to begin with I thought, oh, what is this? What am I seeing here? And then you realise, okay, this is Benoit Blanc and it's Knives Out. And then when it revealed the date was so far in the future, I thought, wow, they're getting the hype train going early, and I feel as if they're going to be hyping this up for a long time and it's going to be a big build-up. So it is interesting to hear that it's just on streaming and not going to be theatrical. So I'm expecting that they're going to be trying to make a really big deal out of this and try and really make it an event. We talk in the future on 300 about their move into more live programming programming and that sort of thing. So I do wonder if the big tentpole event things are a really big deal for them and a big moneymaker, big spinner. So it's just getting that kind of feel from it because of the way that they're teasing it out.
I do feel like it will have a limited run in cinemas.
Yeah.
It'll be screening in a few cinemas for a couple of days or something. It's just a shame that Netflix jumped on this and turned this, what is now franchise, into a streaming exclusive thing, because the first one was just a cinema release. And it played pretty well, and then so did the second one for the brief time that it was there. And there's going to be 5 of them, I think.
Oh, really?
They've paid an absurd amount of money to get Ryan Johnson to write another 4 of them. It's good for Ryan Johnson, I suppose.
Yeah, as I say, I'm expecting them to be teasing and trailing this in the run-up, so we'll probably see a lot more.
Our last trailer, something that's disappointingly also on streaming stuck there, is Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Netflix movie Frankenstein. This is the second thing that del Toro's done that's made its way only to Netflix, because he did Pinocchio as well. That might not have been Netflix, but it was definitely streaming, which is a shame. I think it's unfortunate that someone with such craft is getting stuck on the small screen, because any of del Toro's movies that I've seen on the big screen, they've always been very visually impressive. This is a guy that won an Oscar for The Shape of Water and then has been stuck on streaming since then. It just seems a bit unfortunate. But this looks great. I think it looks incredibly gothic. It looks like a twisted take on the already twisted story. But this could be the first authentic Frankenstein experience we've had in a while. I think it looks very good.
Yeah, so is he just locked into Netflix now? Is he stuck in his own cabinet of curiosities and just doing content for them?
I've no idea. It might just be that they're the ones financing the stuff he wants to do, because as great as he is, he's always had trouble getting things off the ground. He made Hellboy and he had serious caveats placed on him to make Hellboy, and then he makes Pan's Labyrinth, and then he gets to do whatever he wants with Hellboy 2, and then you never get Hellboy 3. There's stuff like Pacific Rim where he got the money to make it, but it didn't do super well because they didn't market it properly and things. But every time he does a project, it's always very interesting. And what was the other one? Crimson something.
Crimson Peak.
Maybe. The one with Tom Hiddleston in it.
Yeah.
Gothic horror thing. I don't think it was his best work, but I liked it. So I do want to see his movies on the big screen. Again, I want at least a limited theatrical run for this one so I can watch it.
Yeah, I really liked Pan's Labyrinth. That came out when I was working at a cinema, and it sort of opened me up to the Del Toro filmography, and I really enjoyed all the Gothic stuff he's done. With this one, I would want to see it just because it's Guillermo del Toro, but I would question if we need another retelling of Frankenstein. I'm sure he will elevate it in the way he does, but I was just getting that feeling watching the trailer. I might be entirely wrong and he might be bringing something completely new to this, but that was just my one nitpick.
You don't think they could revive the Monsterverse between this and Nosferatu?
Well, actually, I did think about that because I saw Robert Eggers' name slightly further down our agenda. And I thought, yeah, it's interesting that we could just be having an entirely different Monsterverse.
They'll never let the Dark Universe die.
No.
The Monsterverse is the Godzilla one. It's the Dark Universe.
Yeah.
They'll never get that Avengers-style team-up off the ground. Yeah, it does look good. It does look fairly traditional as a take on Frankenstein, but I also don't think we've had that in a while. Same with Nosferatu, as much as I didn't like it that much, but that was a long delayed, I suppose, fresh take on the vampire story because we hadn't really had it. It used to be you would get Dracula movies all the time. We're not in that era of filmmaking at the moment. It goes in cycles, doesn't it?
It does, because Eggers is looking at werewolf as well, so if Wolfman, werewolf type. Maybe we are sort of preempting this Dark Universe, Universal Monsters type era.
Revive the photoshopped cast photo that went nowhere. Tom Cruise and Johnny Depp and so on. None of them in the same room in a photo together. Well, that was it. That's our trailers. It's a very lean month for trailers and a bit of a lean month for news as well. So let's jump to one of our pillars. Our first pillar being Marvel. We have a couple of semi-confirmed bits of news that's coming up. After the critical, if not financial, success of Thunderbolts **, the X-Men movie at Marvel Studios is potentially going to be directed by Jake Schreier, who directed Thunderbolts **. That's it. He's going to do the X-Men. I think he'd be a good fit for it because Thunderbolts ** is a bit of an ensemble piece. And, well, the X-Men movies haven't typically been quite the ensemble piece that you would want them to be because Hugh Jackman tends to dominate. But if you look at First Class, that's the closest, at least for me, pure X-Men film that they ever made. I think he'd be a good fit for something like that, something that emphasises the team.
I haven't seen Thunderbolts, so yeah, I would have to just follow your lead on this. And I don't really know much about the X-Men movie or anything that's proposed really with it.
I don't think there's been anything announced, but it could be that it's the teens at school angle.
Right.
Which hasn't been done at all, really.
It's an approach, I suppose, and it's something that if we haven't seen it, then that would be a fresh take.
Yes. Also on Marvel, Spider-Man Brand New Day, the fourth Tom Holland movie, is going to star the Punisher. Jon Bernthal's Punisher is going to appear in the movie. That's the confirmed Marvel person that will be in this Spider-Man movie, because we need a Marvel mascot of some sort to shepherd these movies, these Spider-Man movies. There was a rumour that Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is also going to be in it, but that's not been confirmed. But it's been the kind of confirmed where it's all but confirmed. It's no smoke without fire type rumour. It's probably going to happen. There's been a lot of chatter about this. People saying you can't have the Punisher in a PG-13 Spider-Man movie. And I say they had him in the 90s cartoon, so there's no reason why not. It's just he probably won't be blowing people's brains out quite as viscerally as he is known for.
Yeah, I haven't seen his portrayal of the Punisher, but I presume that his appearances so far are more in that kind of R-rated, 15-rated range.
Yeah, I haven't actually made it through the Punisher show because the first 4 or 5 episodes bored the bejesus out of me. They just weren't entertaining, so I stopped watching it. But his appearance in Daredevil Season 2 is very much what's the difference between me and you? I kill people, you don't, but we're essentially both morally bankrupt vigilantes and we have to wake up to that kind of thing. And then he was in Daredevil Born Again as well, where it was a similar vibe as in I kill people and then they don't come back. You don't kill people, they do come back. And in Daredevil Born Again, there's a tragic loss for Matt Murdock. And Frank Castle asks him, what about this guy? Did he get life? I'm not going to say who it was in case people haven't seen it. So I do want Frank Castle to say to Peter Parker in this movie, what about Uncle Ben? Did he get life? That's just a thing he says to justify his killing to everybody. And it usually works. It's quite a compelling argument.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be an interesting dynamic, if nothing else. I think Jon Bernthal's Punisher is a very scary guy, or he can be. So I feel like him with the younger, more timid Tom Holland, Peter Parker, could be a fun back and forth.
Yeah, it could be an interesting combination. I like him as an actor. I definitely intend seeing the roles I've seen him in The Walking Dead, The Bear. So yeah, maybe it's a shame that I haven't seen him portray the Punisher, but as you say, I think it could be an interesting contrast with the more younger, comedic, happy-go-lucky Spider-Man.
And they team up to fight the Hulk, because that's a fair fight, isn't it? Frank Castle just a mile away with a sniper rifle. I'll be over here. Don't worry about it. We've got your back. Maybe Daredevil will turn up too. That'd be great. The appearance of the Punisher seems to suggest that at least in some way it will lean towards the street level Spider-Man that I've been wanting. The Hulk being there. Spider-Man has also fought the Hulk in the comics a number of times, and that can be a fairly street level story as well. Just the Hulk is causing trouble somewhere and Spider-Man goes to stop him. It's unknown if it'll be Smart Hulk or Rage Hulk. I want Rage Hulk back. I think Smart Hulk's kind of boring. Because it's just Banner, but he looks like the Hulk. That's not interesting.
Yeah, it's true. Again, the fun is in the contrast.
Yeah. Let's hop over this fence to DC. We have casting for the Clayface movie. That's the one that is going to be written by Mike Flanagan, who has a lot of accolades for a bunch of Netflix horror stuff like The Fall of the House of Usher and so on. There's a lot of eyes on this one because it's going to be a mid-budget horror thing about an actor who becomes a monster or something. The details are a bit sketchy at this point, but that is a version of the Clayface story, the tragic version. The actor playing him is going to be Tom Rhys-Harris, who I actually saw recently in Doctor Who. He was in the first Shooty Gatwa series, but he was also been in the Apple TV series Suspicion and such movies as The Return and the Gerard Butler action title Kandahar and Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman. So they've cast this guy as the version of Clayface, whatever one that'll be. Are you familiar with the Batman villain Clayface?
My only knowledge of Clayface is having fought and then played as him in the Lego Batman games. What
about the Arkham games? You fight him in Arkham City, I think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm probably most familiar with and spent most time with him in Lego Batman. And I was having a look at Tom Rhys-Harris' credits, and I don't think I've seen him in any of these. So, yeah, this is one that I'm not too familiar with, more from video games.
The interesting thing about it is it's James Gunn's approach to his version of the DC universe is that he's making it a writer-driven studio, or that's what he says so far anyway. So it's this idea of we're going to make a relatively low-budget Clayface movie that will lean into this perhaps tragic story of an actor who becomes a monster and doesn't fight Batman, I guess, in this case. I don't know what will happen instead. Well, I mean, they did it with Joker. Well, that was crap, but I've more hopes for this because it's more that James Gunn seems to be saying the right things about his approach to the DC universe, which of course could be completely derailed by next month if Superman flops and they fire him. Because that'll happen. If Superman flops, he will be blamed entirely for it, and then it'll be, we're scrapping everything.
I know people ask questions about Marvel and Iron Man and Thor and if there was enough interest in these characters to set off the trajectory that they eventually did. Do you think that Clayface has the legs to sell tickets.
Even if they're made of clay.
Even if they're made of clay.
I don't see why not. I think a good movie is just a good movie, and people will gravitate to a good movie. Not in all cases, because you hear about these original projects that are good that people don't watch. But I think if they do a bit of a grungy folk horror type or classic horror type movie that just happens to be about a comic book villain, then people might gravitate to it. People gravitated to Joker, but could you imagine essentially we're going to make Joker, but we're going to do it well and it'll be good?
My suspicion is that with the superhero fatigue that we're experiencing a bit, or maybe I'm just projecting here, that if this wasn't related, or if this weren't related to DC, or if it weren't a DC supervillain, then it might be an easier sell. It could be well written. It could look great. The trailers could be intriguing. I just feel that it's weighed down by a bit of clay at this point, by all the baggage, which is maybe a shame, because if it is going to be a good project, or if it's a good film, if it's well made and well done, it should be seen. That would be my concern.
I think the fatigue is around more mediocrity rather than specifically superhero fatigue. I think people are getting sick of watching crappy movies that are incredibly formulaic and aren't worth their time or money. I think that's what's making things suffer. We talked about / we'll talk about it during the 300th podcast, but the expectations about how much money these things are going to make have to shift now, because Thunderbolts * was well regarded, but it hasn't really done well financially, and they probably spent too much money on it anyway. So if it had been made for the budget that it could have been made for, then it could be a success. And James Gunn said that this will be moderately budgeted. So it doesn't have to set the cinema on fire to make a lot of money to be a success.
My suspicion, or it might just be anecdotal, is that it's starting from a negative position because of that baggage and that perception of we've had quite a run of clunkers in terms of DC and some of the Marvel stuff as well even. So yeah, they're starting from this negative position where they then feel like they have to chuck a lot at it in terms of marketing and maybe spend too much that way. And they just keep digging rather than allowing it to be what it can be. And that's tough, because if you are starting from that negative position, then you're always kind of fighting against that rather than having a fair go at it.
Yeah, but in terms of the behind the camera talent as well, so you have Mike Flanagan writing it. He has a inbuilt audience already because a lot of people like what he was doing on Netflix. I've not seen any of it, but I have listened to interviews, people that work with him, and they can't find enough nice things to say about the guy in terms of his intellect and the way that he crafts stories and stuff like that. And I know that he's achieved a lot of success. So I think his involvement will get people interested, and then maybe it will just build momentum from there. And like I say, it's going to be moderately budgeted, so they'll be playing for that sensibility anyway. And James Gunn talked about we're not trying to 4-quadrant all of these movies as well.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of this one, we will aim it at the horror crowd, perhaps. And people who like horror movies, they make a film a success because they like horror movies. It might be weighed down by its association to a comic book thing, but equally it might not be. I do think that people will still celebrate the ones that are good. That is still happening.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah. And just briefly, you've got Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is just going to be called Supergirl now. Similarly, when Superman, as it's known now, was once called Superman Legacy, James Gunn said he was just sick of the superhero name : name of film thing, so he's not doing it anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how he does the sequels. But maybe he'll do the Dark Knight approach, find some other moniker to name the sequel after.
Man of Steel.
Yeah, well, we already had that. Man of Tomorrow or something, the next one. The Supergirl sequel could just be called Woman of Tomorrow. There you go. You've already got 2 films at one title. Fantastic. Another thing from DC is that James Gunn says that there's a Wonder Woman movie being written right now. Right this second, someone is typing a script for Wonder Woman. They haven't commented on who would be playing Wonder Woman. There's no suggestion of casting, but it probably will not be Gal Gadot.
But it probably will be called Wonder Woman.
Yes, not Wonder Woman. I don't know what our secondary monikers tend to be. Princess of Power, I don't know. I imagine she's probably been called that. There's been a few bits of fan casting for Wonder Woman recently. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head, but there's a few options out there. They'll pick someone, I'm sure. And they're still doing the Paradise Lost spin-off series that's going to be set on Themyscira. That's still on the cards. So Wonder Woman's a thing that's going to be happening. And I think James Gunn said a Superman sequel might not be a straight-up Superman sequel, so it'll probably be called World's Finest and star Batman as well. Or there'll be Batman v Superman again. No, they'll be friends in this one, I think.
Infinite loop.
Superman and Batman are more interesting as friends than they are as enemies for me. Because it's just such an unlikely friendship that it just really works.
Yeah, and they should go for that rather than rehashing the versus angle.
Yeah, it's more to do with social classes because Superman's a journalist and Batman's a billionaire. They don't roll in the same circles whatsoever in their daily lives. All right, next up, do I hear something about Star Wars?
Yeah, let's do it.
Mia Goth joins Sean Levy's Star Wars Starfighter alongside Ryan Gosling. The film is eyeing a fall production start, and Disney has set a theatrical release date of May 28th, 2027, just after our Star Wars Day episode that year. That's bad timing, Disney.
Yeah, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Missing out on Star Wars Day.
The standalone, which focuses on new characters in the Star Wars universe, is set roughly 5 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker. Oh, great. Can't wait to see what that world looks like. Goth will next appear in Frankenstein alongside Jacob Elordi and Oscar Isaac, as well as Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey with Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Zendaya, Anne Hathaway, and half of Hollywood. I'm trying to remember what the summary, and I thought it would be on here, but it's not.
I don't know a lot about it, although it was announced at Celebration in Japan, so I should really have paid attention.
But were you actually at the Star Wars celebration in Japan?
Yes, we were there for one day.
Is it basically you can get in the door but can't do very much?
Yes, basically, because you have to get tickets for every single other event and other panel and announcement and everything, so you can kind of go in, wander around, look at all the stalls, and then that's about it.
The story reportedly centres on a 15-year-old boy on a mission with his uncle, played by Ryan Gosling, while being pursued by villains. That's basically what the film's going to be about, or supposed to be about. I guess the most interesting thing about it is that Ryan Gosling has agreed to be in the film. It's pretty high profile as far as star power goes for a Star Wars movie. It's not all that common. It can be distracting though, because Woody Harrelson in Solo, it's just Woody Harrelson, isn't it? It's weird to see him in the Star Wars universe. I don't know if I'm that interested in it, to be honest. I find it very difficult to get enthusiastic about Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, it's all been a bit deflating recently. And as you say, it's a bit of a shame that it won't be out in time for us to cover it as part of the Star Wars Day special.
Possibly the year after though.
Yeah.
What are you doing in May 2028? Because that's what we're doing.
Put it in my calendar. I mean, it was already in my calendar as a recurring appointment.
But now you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Assuming this comes out at all, it could fall apart.
It could.
Apparently the Rey-led film is on hold. That lasted long.
Oh, good.
Anyway, moving on. We have some, I guess you could call this franchise connected. Bill Pullman and Rick Moranis returning for new Spaceballs. Kiki Palmer, Lewis Pullman also set to star. Amazon declined to comment, and character details are under wraps, as is the sequel's plot. That's about it. There's not much more other than they're going to make a Spaceballs 2. I'm assuming you've seen Spaceballs 1.
You assume incorrectly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, it's just passed me by.
You could do that on a Star Wars day, because it is basically Star Wars.
Yeah, we probably could and should. A friend of mine contacted me recently to let me know that Spaceballs 2 was announced or rumoured, and I had to admit that I had not seen Spaceballs, and it was just a shocked face in reply.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I have seen it.
Well, you did mention earlier that we could be entering a new era of spoofs, so it makes sense that this is getting fired up as well.
Rick Moranis plays Dark Helmet, and instead of the Force, it's the Schwartz, I think. Could be a Star Wars Day left field choice when we get sick of doing animated Star Wars stuff, especially for Spaceballs 2 coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happening. Long delayed. Does anybody want this? Did we really need it? But we're getting it. First one's funny, and maybe there will be something subversive and hilarious about this version as well.
Well, they've got a lot of material to work with now.
Yes. What would a spoof of Star Wars look like in the modern era?
Some might say that The Rise of Skywalker was spoof enough.
Yeah, how do you spoof that? It's already funny enough. It's the Charlie Booker problem, isn't it? When he said about making more Black Mirror, he's like, no, the world's insane enough. There's nothing else I can do.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with Armando Iannucci in the thick of it. Once politics became the way that it is now, it's stranger than fiction.
But then Charlie Brooker did more Black Mirror, so it's all possible.
Yes.
We mentioned earlier that Pixar are perhaps not riding the highs that we would want them to, but they have announced another new original movie called Gatto by Enrico Casarosa, about a cat living in the iconic lagoon city of Venice. And there's a picture of it. It looks kind of watercolour-ish in terms of the picture that they've shown, but I don't know if that's just a watercolour painting, and the film itself will be much more traditionally CGI animation like a lot of Pixar films look. If the film looks like this picture, I'll be really chuffed with it, though, at least visually, because that looks stunning and I would love to see that in motion. Yeah,
it looks quite cool and different to what we've seen before.
Yeah. In terms of cat movies, have you seen Flow?
I have not.
Flow is very good. That was made for like 20 quid by one person or something. Right. It's very good. The director previously directed Luca, which I liked, and the short film Boy in the Moon, which I remember, but I can't remember if I liked her or not. He also previously worked as a story artist on Cars, Ratatouille, Up, Cars 2 and Coco, as well as head of story on The Good Dinosaur. I didn't like The Good Dinosaur that much, but good for him. The picture looked cool, and I'm always up for a story about a cat.
Yes, both of us being cat owners, we like to see them.
Yep. Flow is completely dialogue free, so you have to pay attention.
No second screening.
No second screening, no. But it's good, and hopefully Gatto will be good as well. I would like it if it was dialogue free as well. Visual storytelling, I would love to see it.
Yeah, that could be good.
Yeah. As teased earlier, Nosferatu director Robert Eggers sets a Christmas Carol remake at Warner Brothers. Willem Dafoe eyed for Scrooge. I guess Robert Eggers is going to find a role for Willem Dafoe in everything he makes. Willem Dafoe is Scrooge. I'm here for it, actually.
Yes, same. To preempt a conversation we're going to have on the next episode, I probably should have mentioned Robert Eggers as being one of these names that when I see that he's attached to something, I become interested and think, I will have to see that. I think you mentioned that you didn't like Nosferatu. I didn't think it was as good as the other films of his that I'd seen. Didn't quite live up to it, but hasn't put me off enough. I still feel like if there's a Robert Eggers film coming out, I'll be there for it.
Do you want to petition Violet to put him on the list?
Yeah, if you could add him to the list, that would be great. Thanks, Violet.
Ari Aster as well, you said.
Yes, these are names that catch my attention.
I haven't seen The Northman. I haven't seen The Lighthouse. I have seen The Witch. The Witch.
I haven't actually seen The Witch, but I'd seen The Northman, seen The Lighthouse. Liked both of those a lot. Lighthouse is weird. More weird Willem Dafoe, but great. It's such a fun, strange movie. And The Northman, a bit more traditional, I think. Mentions Orkney in it, so that obviously gave it some points, very briefly. But yeah, I really like that one as well. Alexander Skarsgård, really enjoyed his performance in that.
You think he'll get Pattinson in this one?
I'd like to think so. He was really good in The Lighthouse as well.
Maybe some Muppets?
Now, that would be really interesting. A Robert Eggers remake of The Muppet Christmas Carol with Willem Dafoe.
I'd watch it. On our 100th episode, we talked about what movies we would remake with Muppets, and we were essentially talking about remaking a Muppets movie already that is an adaptation of a classic Charles Dickens story. What kind of confusing array of stuff do you have to go through to get to that point? So Robert Eggers, The Muppets Christmas Carol, that's what we want.
Yeah, please, make it happen.
We're going to close off our short news podcast this month with a couple of video game adaptations. Are you familiar with the game Dragon's Lair? I guess it's the QuickTime event-driven game.
Yeah, I've never played it, but I have heard about it. I've seen some stuff about it and heard that it's supposed to be really tough, really difficult game.
Test your reflexes, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm familiar from that perspective.
Just play it on an arcade emulator and turn the speed down 1,000-fold, and then you can't lose. I've never done that, but you could. Speaking of the Muppets, the director in talks for this is James Bobbin, who directed The Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted. Those were the most recent ones, I'm guessing.
I would have to take your word for it.
Let's find out.
They probably were, but I haven't actually seen any of the recent ones.
Yes, he is the director of the 2011 film The Muppets. It's not even a reboot, it's just another one, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And then Muppets Most Wanted, which starred Ricky Gervais as well.
Struggling to even remember Muppets Most Wanted.
I wasn't a huge fan of it, as far as I remember. I did enjoy the 2011 one, though. I thought that was good.
I haven't seen that, but that was a bit of a revival because the Muppets fever had kind of died down for a bit, and I remember that coming out and it being a renaissance for the Muppets, but maybe we haven't had quite as many Muppet movies and Muppet adaptations as we'd hoped since then.
Well, there was the 2 movies, and I'm sure there was a TV series as well.
Yeah, but what we really wanted was the heyday of take a classic story, classic property, and Muppetize it.
Muppets Avengers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what the modern... We did that discussion during the 100th podcast, which was 200 podcasts ago. But I wonder what classics the Muppets would maybe satirise now. They went for more literature-based stuff, didn't they? Treasure Island and Christmas Carol and so on. And there was things like The Great Muppet Caper that were just Muppet movies.
Muppet Harry Potter.
I don't know if you should touch that. That also wouldn't work licensing-wise. Warner Brothers and then Disney. So it needs to be a Disney thing.
Okay. Back to the drawing board. Just
the Muppets and Disney movies, I guess. The Muppets and Aladdin. I don't know. Kermit's the genie. That would have been better than what we got, actually. The 2 old guys are the Sultan.
Statler Waldorf, co-sultans.
Miss Piggy's Jasmine. I should stop talking. I'm giving them ideas. It's going to be the next round of live-action remakes. We're doing them all again, but with Muppets. It will make billions. And it was my idea, and I'll get nothing.
None of this has anything to do with Dragon's Lair.
But yeah, Dragon's Lair. He's going to do this. Ryan Reynolds is producing it. He would maybe be in it. He could be the knight that goes into the Dragon's Lair. It feels like a Reynolds-type role.
It does, yeah. That seems along the lines of type of role he takes. I'm sure I read the name. Dirk the Daring.
Okay. As is always the case with video game adaptations, you have to wonder what the angle's going to be, because the thing about Dragon's Lair is the press right, press the button, whatever, to do it. So is it going to be a series of elaborate traps that Ryan Reynolds is going to have to maneuver through that will get increasingly ridiculous? Because you're not going to be able to replicate that feel. And then the tone... I feel like the Dungeons and Dragons tone, as in the recent movie, the Chris Pine movie, that tone is maybe what you're going to aim for.
Yeah, it will be difficult. You mentioned we've got a couple of video game adaptations to talk about, but it's just that trying to bridge the gap between a gamer's interaction with a game, a property, and how this becomes specifically a Dragon's Lair film rather than just a story about a character who is in Dragon's Lair.
Well, we're going to find out whether we want to or not. Dragon's Lair was at one point in the early 80s the most popular arcade game in America, bankrupting kids everywhere of their quarters. I don't think in this country we would ever experience paying so little money to play an arcade game.
No.
It was always £1, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's probably as expensive as that.
Which translated into American money, it'd be less than $1, I guess, but still more than 25 cents. But just the idea of the American routine is the parents give the kids $5 while they're going shopping, and then that's quite a few games in the arcade.
Yeah, you've got to make it last. But then some games like Dragon's Lair or all the arcade games are engineered to rob you of your money as quickly as possible.
Yeah, my experience of putting £1 in an arcade machine is I play it for maybe 2 minutes and then that's it. I'm out of lives. Time crisis and things. Never get that far. And last but by no means least, or maybe by means least, who knows, Phasmophobia film in the works, Blumhouse to adapt a paranormal horror game. Have you ever played Phasmophobia?
I haven't, but just reading this article and reading up a bit about the game, this is another one where I think it's going to be difficult to recreate the atmosphere, because I gather it's a first-person horror game that gives the player a really different experience to watching a story play out on screen in a film. So it's just very difficult to try and recreate the feeling. That's what I would question, is what would make the film a Phasmophobia film rather than just another horror film that's roughly themed around similar plot or similar characters.
The game is a horror investigation survival game played from a first-person point of view. The player can work alone or with a group of people to identify the type of ghost haunting a specific location. Blumhouse, as mentioned, and Atomic Monster will produce the film in association with Kinetic Games. The game came out in 2020, so it's not that old as well. I think it's pretty lo-fi in the sense of it's almost a point and click, I think. You're investigating an area and to look around and maybe a ghost will jump out and say boo or something. Blumhouse doing it fills me with some kind of confidence because they do generally good stuff. They put their name against pretty good stuff most of the time. They did have Halloween for a while and so on. Most recent Halloween movies are them.
Right, yeah.
And they're looking at getting the Saw rights next as well. So that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
So yeah, they know what they're doing, but I just have that concern, especially with this investigative game. It's more player-driven than narrative-driven. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I've never played it, so I have limited experience with what to expect. We mentioned Split Fiction earlier, but it seems to be the time frame between these games being released and then being adapted is very small. Well, this is 4 years, whereas Split Fiction is this year?
Yeah.
It's not a long time at all. Hollywood is always latching onto its next quick buck, and it seems that the video game IP is maybe the way to do that because we've had a couple of successes and we've had a couple of things like Borderlands, so it could go either way at this point.
Yeah, it really could.
Good luck, I guess, Blumhouse, for putting that together.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Well, that's it. Very short news podcast this month, which is great for me as the editor. We cleared out our June highlights, news and trailers. So Angus, thank you for joining for this conversation.
Thank you.
I'll see you on 300.
Yes, join us for the 300th Spectacular.
Which will be out after this, but is also out already. It's everywhere. It's all around you. As mentioned, that was our discussion about June's news, trailers, bits and pieces. I would like to thank Neil Stenson for the supplied music. If you enjoyed what you heard, please do subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. There's usually a button that you can press to subscribe on that feed. And also on most of those feeds is a way to rate and review the podcast as well. So Angus, how many stars should we get?
The number of stars we would love to see is 5.
Yes, and a comment as well. If you want to discuss anything we discussed here, or anything else, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, under Neil Before Blog, or you can leave a comment under neilbeforeblog.co.uk. You can also join us on Discord, where we have an engaged community of a couple of listeners. The plural is there now. It's happened. It only took a couple of years, but it happened. For more news podcasts like this one, for deep dive analytical discussions about your favourite nerdy things, for the odd interview, and for the upcoming digest of the live 300th podcast spectacular, you can continue to join us on Kneel Before Pod.